Fellas, welcome back to what is another real big adventure vlog thing. I don't even know what to call them, but let me tell you, before we get into this one, which is a special one, it's excellent, I think. I don't know, I haven't even made the video. I just want to say that I was looking at the past two of these, right? The one to Iceland and the one to Japan, and there's like more views on them than like two. And that doesn't make any sense to me, because like, these videos are unlisted, right? So if you don't have the link, you can't get to it. So that means I have to give you the link, or somebody else has to give you the link before you can even watch it. And let me tell you, I don't even have more than like 2 friends, so I don't know how there's more than 2 views. And I'm not even the one buying like a refresh bot. And nobody refreshing these videos to add the views, so I don't know what's going on. But it really is really cool to see that somebody, at least, is interested in listening to me ramble for like 20 minutes, which is insane, because I can't even listen to myself ramble for like 2 minutes. I mean, it's crazy. So it means a lot once again, and so more than one person shockingly asked me to make another one of these. I don't know why, but let me tell you, if you ask me, it'll be done. It'll be done. It has to be done. It just has to be done. So I have done. And you know, I was going to originally make this more of an actual vlog style video,
kind of like this one right here, where I'm talking to the camera in the middle of a public place. But the thing is, as soon as you get to a public place and you're surrounded by people you don't really know, and you may be alone by yourself, it gets really awkward. I mean, I'm in my own like neighborhood right now, and I don't think there's anybody outside, but I'm still like, oh, what is going on, you know? So maybe next time I'll do something like this, but for now we're gonna have to stick with this old format.
Once again, I promised myself, let's not make this video an hour long, 20 minutes long, whatever. And then I went ahead and just recorded about 3 hours worth of stuff. So we'll see how long these end up, well, this one actually just ends up going. And hopefully it's not too long. So let's not dally around any longer, friends. Let's get right into it. Let's go! Let's begin by talking about Singapore, which is actually the second city-state I've been to, alongside Monaco a couple years ago, and it was one of the most wild places ever. I mean, it was super cool. If you're curious, the third city-state, and actually the only other one in the world, is the Vatican City, and one day I'll have to knock them all off the list, but for now, let's just worry about Singapore. So before we get into some of the cool stuff that I saw in Singapore, let's talk about some history, which is cool too. So history, Singapore, bam. Independence was granted from Malaysia in 1965, which makes Singapore younger than my parents, and younger than what most people think the age of my coworkers are, and I have to agree with them, it's gotta be said. So anyway, modern day Singapore, though, is a crazy place with some of the most interesting architecture I've ever seen, and some of the most absolutely wild feats of design and engineering. So among these crazy architectural achievements, and maybe the coolest place out there, is the Gardens by the Bay, which you're seeing on the screen now. The Gardens by the Bay is an area in Singapore that was conceptualized in 2005 as a way to transform the city from a city with a garden to a city in a garden, and was completed about 7 years later in 2012. So the Gardens by the Bay, they're actually built on reclaimed land, which means that everywhere that is sort of grass now was ocean back in 2005, and so they just replaced it all with land, and it cost about 1 billion Singapore dollars to make, or about 750 million USD. So in the Gardens by the Bay are everything you'd expect in a garden, pretty much, right? Trees, rivers, people, all these cool things, but there's also 2 crazy conservatories, the Flower Dome and the Cloud Forest. For the sake of time and whatnot, we're just going to cover the Cloud Forest in particular here. So the Cloud Forest is one of the most wild places ever. And I feel like I've said wild, amazing, whatever, like 17 times already, so I'll stop doing that. But anyway, it doesn't change the fact that it was cool as heck. Featuring an indoor tropical mountain rainforest, I believe they call it, which is home to a huge amount of different flowers and trees and whatnot. And you can also sort of walk right on inside the mountain, take an elevator up to the top, and walk around the perimeter of the actual mountain itself. And we also got a chance to watch it mist inside the dome, which only happens a few times a day, to provide additional moisture to the plants. So it made the whole experience feel really crazy and surreal. And I think that, you know, it's a little bit on the smaller side in my opinion, but it is a must visit place for sure. There's nowhere else in the world quite like it. Also, right next to the Cloud Forest and the Gardens by the Bay is the Super Tree Grove, which contains 18 super trees, which are tree-like structures among actual trees that you can see here. You can actually go to the very top of the tallest super tree to get a better view of the gardens, but we simply didn't opt to do this trip because we'd have too much of a better view later, which you'll also see later. The rest of the Gardens by the Bay is a fairly normal city park where you can find locals going for runs and walks in the park, people relaxing. There's also like a food place in there, like a food court area where you can just, you know, grab some drinks, chill, eat, whatever. It's honestly super awesome, really relaxing, and everything you'd really want in a city park. Continuing on with the city in a garden vibes that Singapore is trying to give off, we'll go ahead and move on to perhaps the favorite thing I got to see in the city, which is the Singapore Botanic Gardens. You got to keep in mind that this country is absolutely tiny, but yet these botanic gardens are huge. It comes in at about 200 acres of land. Also, these gardens are about 165 years old, and it counts as a tropical garden, which makes it the only tropical garden to be honored as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Just a cool little fact there. And so, once again, this garden is kind of like exactly what you'd expect from a city park. There's only one specific part that I want to cover though, or else quite frankly we'll be here for the rest of the time, and it was my favorite part. So there's a portion of this garden, and I don't really know the name of it, but it's on screen here now, and it just sort of felt more natural than all the rest. See, all the rest was like really well mowed, blah, 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 yada, 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 but this felt super natural, like, and there were no tourists here. So it was perfect to sort of just get out into nature in a place where you're just around people all the time. So it really felt like stepping way back into the past, back when nobody was even on the little peninsula here. So if you listen closely in some of these clips, you can actually hear some crazy bugs screeching, and it was just so cool to walk around here. So for example, if you listen into this clip here. Also, while walking around this section of the garden, I was so lucky to be able to find a family of otters that so happened to just call these gardens home. And then I just ended up sitting around for like over an hour, watching them do their thing, and it was so cool. And then their babies also came out, and it was probably the cutest thing I've ever seen in my life. So anyway, here's just a little bit of footage of them. But in total, I think I spent like 4 or 5 hours in these gardens. It was just so cool. I met a lot of cool people as well. All right, let's move away from the green spaces for a bit, which is actually like pretty hard to do because the entire city, with the exception of downtown, is super green. Let's talk a bit about the food tradition in the city instead. So while you can kind of find any kind of food you want nowadays in Singapore, whether that's street food or Michelin star restaurants, or even both at once, the core, I feel like, of Singapore's culinary history lies in what are called hawker markets, which is where people set up hawker stalls. So think of a hawker stall sort of like a street food stall just inside a market. So these stalls sell all kinds of different foods, you know, mostly Singapore food or like other Asian foods, but all the foods are super cheap and really fast. So I went to 2 hawker markets, primarily the Maxwell Center in Chinatown and the one you're seeing on screen right now called Lau Pa Sat, which was built in 1824 and is actually still in operation today, right in the middle of downtown Singapore. So the entire building is just surrounded by massive skyscrapers, but it's just this little tiny food market that sells some pretty good food. So anyway, that's I just wanted to have a little section here about that food culture. Let's get back to some architecture here, and it's high time that we talk about probably the most famous building in Singapore, the Marina Bay Sands. So this 57-floor, 2,975 room resort was first opened in 2011 and is definitely the nicest place I've had the privilege to stay, exclusively thanks to credit card points. Among just the hotel, though, the Marina Bay Sands has a whole shopping complex, convention center, casino, museum, a bunch of other things. However, I don't really care about any of those things because nothing there is quite as impressive as the rooftop infinity pool, which I believe is the main attraction for this resort. While it's possible to go to the roof's lookout point as a tourist, the pool and the restaurants are actually exclusive to guests of the actual hotel portion. So you bet I was spending some sweet time up there. Got to maximize every $0 I spent on this hotel room. So anyway, but you know, I don't know if I came exactly prepared because I had zero sunscreen. So I was peeling. My shoulders were burned beyond belief. I was peeling for what felt like the rest of time. But hey, you know what? That's a small price to pay for the absolutely crazy views you can get during the day or the night. In terms of the room, it's one of the nicest places I've ever stayed as well. But I typically scoff at paying like $50 a night for a hotel room. So my standards for what's a good hotel room is probably as low as somebody who thinks Olive Garden is good food. So anyway, there's so much more to talk about here in Singapore and so much more to see. But for the most part, I was just walking around the city trying to get my vibes and whatnot. And it was... hello friends, this is Editing Dawn here, and as you can see, I was about to go and ramble on about some of the cool features within the Changi Airport, I believe, only to realize that I think my GoPro was dead that morning, because why wouldn't it have been? And all the footage I got of it is, well, it didn't actually record anything. So what you can have instead is some great vertical video of the water feature and whatnot. There's really not much more than this, so not too much loss, but yeah, still kind of sucks. Lesson learned. So we're going to wrap up the Singapore part here and fly on over to Japan. Really cool airplane transition. All right, friends, new day, new me. And so originally, I was planning to have the Singapore portion be its own video and then the Japan portion being its own video. But the Singapore portion only took like, what, 12 minutes or something, 15 minutes? I don't know. And so I was like, all right, short enough. I'm just going to dump them all into one video. The thing is, my editing skills suck, and I don't have more than 5 minutes to deal with it. So I was just like, screw it, I'll just do a weird transition like this instead of editing something fancy. So anyway, Japan, right. So as many of you cultured individuals may remember, I went to Japan not that long ago in April of last year, so about 10 months, and I was able to see all the cherry blossoms in Tokyo and Osaka. And so you may be wondering, what did you do this time? Well, this was my 4th trip out there, so I'm going to go ahead and leave out all the Tokyo, Kyoto, and whatnot, all this easy stuff. I'll discuss that later. And then instead, focus on a 3-day trip I took with a good friend of mine over to Western Japan. And so now you might be asking yourself, what is there to do in Western Japan? I haven't seen any TikToks about Western Japan. I haven't seen anything. And so here I am to show you, because it's more interesting than you may think. Why did I go? Well, the primary reason that I went was because of my desire to see some snow. Because back home, we haven't gotten a substantial amount of snow in like a billion years. So luckily in Japan, though, it's not very difficult to go and see a crazy amount of snow just a few hours west of Tokyo. But you might be asking yourself, well, why west and not north? Why not go to Hokkaido or something crazy like that? Well, you know, while you can easily see a bunch of snow in the north of Japan, Japan has some very, very interesting geography, which results in what I've called, what I've heard and what I will call the Japanese snow line, which is where you can draw a line kind of more or less diagonally down Japan. One half of the line gets a boatload of snow and the other half gets like none. And the reason for that, I believe, is because the winds from Siberia will blow east towards Japan, and then it hits the west of Japan, but then all the mountains in the spine of Japan block all of that wind. So you get a ton of snow west of these mountains and no snow to the east. So that results in this line. All right, so we began by renting a real nice car. That was way too expensive. But anyway, we hit the road westward and we only got lost a record-breaking 300 times maybe in Tokyo, because that road network is, I mean, what is going on over there? Anyway, who cares? Not the point. We began our journey by going west towards the Gunma Prefecture, where we made our first stop at this awesome strawberry farm. So strawberry season is actually in the winter in Japan. I don't know if that's the case everywhere. Who knows? Maybe strawberries like winter. But anyway, they grow these strawberries in greenhouses, right? And we were able to book a 30-minute trip to this farm where, it's all you can eat strawberries for like $17 or something. And let me tell you, they lost money that day. My fat ass was gobbling strawberries like the star-nosed mole eats earthworms, right? Record-breaking pace. All these other people, they were like couples or parents with kids, right? And all these couples wanted to do was take like cutesy pictures with these strawberries or whatever, have a good time. And these parents just wanted their kids to have a good time. And let me tell you, that's all a waste of money. Ain't no kid eating $17 worth of strawberries. And all these cutesy pictures, you can get them for free anywhere in the world. So I don't even think kids should be let alone outside, right? Let alone anywhere close to $17 strawberries. You won't catch me wasting money like these idiots. I eat their share strawberries too. The only thing on my to-do list on a daily basis is to maximize profits. You gotta understand this, right? So anyway, the strawberries were absolutely fire. They didn't taste anything like the strawberries I've had back home over here. They were like very soft, tender, and juicy. Some were sweet, some were sour, depending on the vine, but probably due to just the fact that they were fresh. But it was amazing. Also, I nearly broke my back trying to get all this footage. I mean, it was incredible. It was incredible. That was pain for like 3 hours. Who knows? Who cares? Moving swiftly along here, another major thing about Japan is its quality of snow, particularly out on these mountains out west. So Gunma and its neighboring prefecture Nagano are known for their crazy ski resorts, and I can see why. Not only is there a ton of snow, but the snow is somehow so easily packed into ski snow or just snowball snow. So then we ended up spending some time at this ski resort, and I don't know how to ski, so I was just sitting around. Whatever, it was still a lot of fun. I was messing around with this like 9-year-old Japanese kid or whatever. I don't know. We couldn't understand each other. It was great. Anyway, moving on to the next day, we hit the road again towards the city of Nagano, where there was the 1998 Winter Olympics. And now this is where things get a little bit crazy, right? So shortly after we hit the highway west from Gunma, right, we went through this tunnel that was at least a few miles long. I mean, it was tunnel for minutes. And I'm assuming what happened was we went through this quote-unquote spine of Japan, as I mentioned earlier, right? Because as soon as we exited this tunnel, it was a huge amount of snowfall. I mean, tenfold of what was before. And it was like stepping into a winter wonderland. I mean, it was so cool. It was so beautiful that we stopped in this small town just along the road. We had no plans whatsoever. And the town was just so pretty that we stopped by. We parked at a random restaurant and we just walked around to see the scenery. And I mean, honestly, it was really cool to take it all in. This was some of the snow I'd ever seen personally. And it was so pretty. I mean, truly wonderful. This is the glories of a real big adventure. No plans, just go see what's out there. I said no plans, but that's not strictly true because our next stop was a planned stop, baby. Let's go. It was at this weird igloo restaurant thing called the Kamakura Village. And the gimmick here is that you can eat hot pot inside an igloo. And so while very cool, if you weren't eating this hot pot, it's like freezing cold because there's no sun. Nothing gets into this igloo other than snow and ice. And so you're going to get like hypothermia if you're not eating. So you got to keep eating. And that's like a ploy to get people fat, I'm sure. I don't know what's going on there. But as I mentioned in my last Japan video, something very cool about Japan is that there's just random shrines everywhere because of Shinto beliefs and stuff, whatever. I don't know. They're dotted around a city or even in more rural locations. You're going to find one somewhere. And look at this. They even put one in an igloo here. I mean, how sick. Once again, here comes that word sick. I don't know. I have like a vocabulary of 4 words. I can't think of another one. So after eating, we went to this other area called the Togakushi Shrine, which we thought was going to be like, what I just mentioned, an awesome shrine in the middle of nowhere. And that's not at all what we were greeted with. It couldn't have been further off the mark because we do no planning. It's excellent. So it turns out the Togakushi Shrine actually consists of 5 shrines. Okay, each one of these is in a separate area called the lower, middle, and upper shrine areas. So each area is about 2 kilometers away from each other. And to see all of them, I believe they recommend like a 3-hour hike. We rocked up at like 3 p.m. The sun already on its way down. It's gone at 5:30. And so we looked at each other, we laughed, and then proceeded to just drive to the upper area where all the pretty stuff is. That's just how we do it. That's how Americans do it. Skip everything and just go for the finish. That's it. That's fine. It's great. Anyway, The thing is, to get to the actual upper shrine area consists of a hike, and it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever done. I mean, everything was covered in snow, and there was over, you see on the sides here, these over 800-year-old Japanese cedar trees just lining the path. It was out of a fairy tale. I mean, it was magical, all right? But, since we were going up so late in the day, that might be why, there were fewer and fewer people because nobody wants to do a hike when it's freezing and dark. I understand that, but nothing was about to stop me. So we ended up going to the very top where the snow was so slippery, it got so hard to make it all the way to the top. But what lies at the top of the shrine, is this tiny little building, and nobody can really agree on when it was actually built. Some say it dates back all the way to 200 BCE, while the latest estimates say it was built in 1000 AD. Regardless, this thing's old, all right? It's old. There's no other word for it. So anyway, took a picture of that, and then I was like, okay, whatever, bye-bye. I want to go see the trees again. So we went down, and going down was actually way harder than going up. Had to transform it into a sledding game, but that made for an excellent experience. And that's really all that matters. And, I really wish we actually got here a little bit earlier in the day because I could have spent a whole day looking at these trees. But you know what? Just seeing what we did was excellent, and I wouldn't have traded what we did earlier in the day for anything. So, excellent. 10 out of 10. Togakushi Shrine. Go there. I just said that the Togakushi Shrine is one of the most magical places I've ever been. But let me tell you, it was nowhere close to as magical as the next morning. So we woke up bright and early to drive out of Nagano City to a location known as the Jikokudani, which directly translates to Hell's Valley. And so this name was given to it because it's an area of high natural geothermal activity, resulting in steam coming up from the cracks in the ground and nearby geothermal water flowing all throughout the inhospitable mountains and forests nearby. However, nobody cares about the name or history of this place. I mean, I sure don't. The only part I care about is what everybody cares about, which is the Monkey Park, where you can watch monkeys bathing in the natural hot springs. Amazing. So to get here though, first you have to go through this beautiful hike. And the thing is, we did it early in the morning, right as they opened, around 9 a.m. And this is before the tour buses actually arrived. So there were only a few people, the same people who rented a car, right? And that's a lot harder to do for people who don't have licenses in left-hand drive countries. So once we reached the actual location of the geothermal hot springs, though, the monkeys hoved into view. And this was by far one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And I feel like I've said that 5 times in this video, but it is. I think the best part, though, about this entire thing is that this isn't some kind of enclosed exhibits, and the monkeys have just been naturally doing this for a long time now, and they just still are. I will say they are incentivized a little bit more because they're fed by park attendants in the morning, which sort of encourages them to come down from the top of the mountains and the nearby forests. But let me tell you, if you gave me food, I'd be coming from high and low as well. I'm not paying. That's a 10 out of 10 right there, no doubt in my mind. But anyway, what they do is later afterwards, though, they'll start leaving and going back into the mountains and whatnot as the day goes on. So anyway, the monkeys, though, they were super cute and friendly. I don't know if there's anywhere else in the world where you can see something like this. So it was amazing just to be able to see it with my own eyes. I think I even made a monkey friend. I mean, how cool is that? So the monkeys, though, they're absolutely everywhere. But as I said, later in the day, they sort of flock, right back out and up into the mountains. So, as I mentioned before, jumping into, even the strawberry farm, there isn't much media about what there is to do out in Western Japan other than ski. And maybe there is. Maybe I'm just an idiot and didn't look properly enough. But, when planning the trip, I got a little bit hesitant because I was not entirely sure there'd be enough to do for a few days out in Western Japan besides the skiing and whatnot. But I'm so glad to have been pleasantly surprised by the scenery, the amount to do, and one of now my favorite cities, Nagano. So we drove up to one final viewpoint before heading back to Tokyo, which is about a 4-hour drive. And, there wasn't actually an official viewpoint, but I saw on Google Maps that somebody took a crazy image from a shrine. So we drove all the way up this windy mountain on this road that is barely big enough for our car. And, we ended up reaching the shrine after doing 4 6-point turns to turn around. And I mean, just look at this. I mean, this is a an amazing city. It's flanked on all sides by snow-capped mountains. And I mean, it's just truly amazing. It really is. So we then drove on back to Tokyo that night, got caught in a traffic jam for an additional 2 hours, which was so great. But you know what? At least we had a chance to rest our weary legs, which I believe had gone about 10 miles per day and up and down these mountains. And so the thing is, it was all worth it in my opinion. No amount of soreness could make me do something else in that period of time. So we got back, and then I actually ended up spending a few more days in Tokyo, and actually went to Kyoto for a day as well. But I'm gonna go ahead and end this video here. And the reason for that is because if you want to see highlights of Kyoto, if you want to see highlights of Tokyo, don't go to Instagram. Don't go to TikTok. Don't go to Facebook. Don't go to YouTube. Don't go anywhere. Just go and buy yourself a ticket and get on over to Japan. Tokyo and Kyoto, low-hanging fruit. So easy to get between them. And the thing is, I know you won't regret it. Japan still lies as my favorite country of all time. You know, I've been there 4 times, and I don't know why. It just has a very special place in my heart. It's excellent. And so, you know, as you can see here now, my map is filling on up with these red pins, and my flight map is filling on up with flights. But you know what? Until the whole map is red, I won't be satisfied. The next real big adventure is in May, and I can't wait to show you guys everything there is to offer. I'll make another one of these. Maybe it'll be in vlog format next time. Maybe I'll get too nervous again. Who knows? We'll all find out together then. And until then, stay big. Let's go! And they believe blah blah blah. Prefecture got once again, they're about. Oh, once again, I didn't say anything. What am I talking about? Oh my god, I need to stop saying it's cool. A bunch of people eating food. Building? They're not building anything. Is exactly it's exactly Alpasat or Laupasat. I don't know what the craziest place. Wow, cool airplane transition. How cool. You see, for cool airplane transition. Wow. Really cool airplane transition. Really cool airplane transition. All right, friends, new day, new me. And so originally I was playing